keeping you connected and protected.
Welcome to DAS Talk, the essential podcast on distributed antenna systems and in-building communication. Hosted by Peter, VP of GAMMA, and Philip Nicholas. This GAMMA electronic series focuses on emergency response and safety. Join us as we navigate the challenges of building effective communication systems for North America's first responders. We delve into the advancements in emergency responder radio systems and the transformative impact on new technologies. Tune in for insightful discussions aimed at increasing knowledge and awareness in the DAS field. Whether you're a professional or an enthusiast, DAS Talk is your gateway to understanding the nexus of technology, safety, and communication.
Hope you all are doing well. It's Gil here from GAMMA with another great episode of DAS Talk coming your way. Today we have Adam Dutcher, who is with Potter ERCES. They just recently had a name change. And, we've been talking about the new summit, or I don't want to say the new summit, but the summit that's coming up August 5th and 6th. And so Potter is one of our sponsors. They're going to be a table sponsor, and you'll be able to see them there. And so we thought it would be great to have Adam on just to talk a little bit about what Potter is. I've worked for a BDA manufacturer before. I'm not super familiar with Potter, so I thought this would be great to have them on. And, to hear a little bit about what they're doing, what's their product set, and kind of what are they planning to do for the futures. Adam, appreciate you being on with us. Thank you so much. If you don't mind, just kind of give us a little intro on yourself, a little background, how you got into this mysterious world of ERCs or ERCES.
Yeah, mysterious world for sure. It definitely wasn't a world that I was familiar with before I started in sales at a BDA company, and I just kind of worked my way up. I've been in the kind of the BDA DAS industry for coming up about 10 years. I've done sales to kind of start off with, and then I started doing more things on the training side. And then when Potter came along, they actually had acquired a company called Tower IQ, which was a New York City-based BDA company. And that product only worked in New York City because New York City obviously has very stringent standards. You can imagine putting a BDA with a donor antenna in downtown New York City could just cause problems all over the place. And so they go ahead and get a national footprint as well. And they purchased a BDA series called the Guardian, which is a passive system, we have both wideband as well as channelized versions of that product. And when they acquired that, I came along with. And so that's kind of my background. I have a lot of experience in design, also a lot of experience in training. I tell my trainees, I started out my training career teaching elementary school kids science after school. And there's nothing that's prepared me more for teaching grown men about RF than teaching kids about how magnets work.
That's a great analogy. That's a great way to put it, though.
Yeah.
Try to simplify it and that was my thing with my girls when they were really little. And it's like, well, what does your dad do? And it's like, well, something with cell phones. Like he makes cell phones work. And so their friends thought that was the coolest thing. Like, oh, your dad does stuff with cell phones. Like they all wanted one. But it's like it's a little more involved than that. Yeah,
and I have to kind of equate it to when people ask me what I do. It's really tough to say, well, I design systems for first responders to be able to use their radios inside the building because of attenuation of building materials, blah, blah, blah. So I just usually say I design systems that are like Wi-Fi for first responders. And that kind of, okay, I kind of know what that is. And it works out pretty well.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, I've always told people we just make phones and first responder radios work inside buildings. And even then, and especially where I live in Colorado, we have a lot of friends that do, and I've shared this on the show before, top secret stuff. They do stuff in space with satellites, whatever. So whenever people ask me, so what do you do? And I pause, and they're always like, oh, it must be something secret. And I'm like, no, it's not secret. It's just, regardless of what I tell them, it's like right over their heads.
Yes.
So I'm like, just if you're at the airport and your phone's working, it's probably because of the industry that we're a part of. And if there's an event and a first responders in a building and the radios are working, it's probably because of something our industry does. And even then, it's over their heads. They just like, eyes.
But at least you're trying to make it as understandable as possible. That's, because it's important work. I mean, especially in my particular industry, we deal exclusively with first responders. The motto of Potter is we save lives. And really it is, if your first responders are not able to communicate inside of buildings, then that creates confusion. A lot of the loss of life actually for 9/11 was because of a lack of communication. between the firefighters and the outside personnel, and being able to coordinate how to get people out safely. So there is a little bit of pride in that, especially for me, knowing that the work that I'm doing isn't just to sell a big red box. It's actually to keep first responders safe.
And it's a great, noble thing to be a part of, because that's
Mhm.
especially at this point, I think in our careers, it's a great thing to be a part of, to help instill that knowledge and things that we have onto whoever's coming behind us, and to keep people safe. And people just don't see it. I mean, it's an assumption that if I go somewhere, I'll be able to communicate or whatever, and they don't even think about it. Just my phone's working, like we're talking about, like TikTok or Instagram or whatever. People just assume their devices are going to work, and so they don't even think about, in the event of an emergency, what happens. So
Yeah. And we can even
we're
diminish that all the way down to, you turn your light on and you expect it to work. We don't think about, the thousands of people that are responsible for keeping that infrastructure in.
Yeah. Well, and I think I've shared this before too. When I was an integrator, and we would put in DAS systems, I would tell the project managers, the directors of IT, the VP of IT, whoever that person was, this will be the most thankless project you ever do. And they're just like, wait, what? And that's what would happen. I would check in with them a month after the system went on air. And it's like, has anybody thanked you? He's like, not a single person. And I'm like, that's right. But it's off your list. It's off, checked on your dry erase board. You're done. You don't have to deal with that anymore.
Absolutely.
But it was the same thing. It was just, people just assume it works. And if it doesn't, that's when they complain and come at you. But
Yep. And especially in kind of the fire security kind of market that we're in at Potter, if it's not working, that is not just a frustration, but it's also a safety issue. So we have to make systems that work. When they're installed properly, you can set it and forget it, for lack of a better term, and that, we don't have to worry about when that police officer or that EMS or that firefighter goes into that building, whether or not they're going to be able to communicate with each other.
Yeah, absolutely. So Adam, fill us in a little bit on Potter, like your product line. Like obviously you guys focus on BDAs, bidirectional amplifiers, but give us a little more information, because I'm not familiar with you guys at all. So, and I apologize for that.
No, that's okay.
After being in this industry for so long.
Yeah, so I mean, there's basically one product line that's broken up into different chapters. So the Guardian series is kind of the bidirectional amplifier that we manufacture and then sell nationally as well, not just to distribution, but also to integrators. We do have bidirectional amplifiers that are both Class A and Class B. And if you're unfamiliar on how that kind of relates to the cellular side, with a Class B system, it's basically a broadband system. That's how I remember it, Class B broadband. Which basically says this is where the frequencies start, this is where the frequencies stop, and everything in between is able to be broadcast or enhanced by that bidirectional amplifier. With a Class A system, we basically take that same band and you're able to select a channel or a series of channels within that band. And that helps, especially in more densely populated areas when you have other cellular towers in the area. It helps you mitigate the issue of bleeding into the cellular. It also helps make sure that the signal is nice and clear, because you're only selecting specific channels, so you don't have to worry about the crosstalk between different frequencies. We do also have a line of UHF systems, which are available in a couple of different configurations. Those are a little bit more specialized, because those frequencies have to be pre-programmed and pre-manufactured. So that's kind of a custom build, if you will. We do also have a myriad of accessories, your cable, your antennas, connectors, splitters, couplers, all that type of thing too. We really do. We're kind of in a unique position because we're not a cellular company. Right? We're not a BDA only company. We are a global company that specializes in sprinkler, in fire alarm, in security, and now also this new division, which is ERCES, the Emergency Responder Communication Enhancement Systems. So we have a group of people that are our customers who are already in the building. They're already doing things like fire alarm and those types of things. And who's the general contractor going to ask about a system for first responders? Probably them. But they don't have the specialized background that a lot of the other DAS companies and DAS integrators do when it comes to RF. So one of the things that we've really tried to do is we've tried to bridge the gap between your RF specialists and your fire specialists, your fire alarm specialists, with our things like training, but also just the simplification of the install. We try to make it as easy as possible for someone who is not well versed in how RF affects not just the signal inside the building, but also outside the building. We try to make intelligent systems that are taking into account the amount of what's called the uplink, which is the signal that's going back to the radio tower. We want to protect the network, because if one of those towers goes down, it's not just the building that doesn't have signal, it's nobody in that entire area and first responders that have any signal whatsoever. BDAs, we do also have the battery backups. One of the things for ERCES is that the system has to be on its own circuit, but it also has to have a battery backup that provides you, code says 12 hours. A lot of AHJs will require 24 hours. So we have both of those flavors. And then the last thing that I'll kind of talk about, and I think these guys are going to be at the actual event, is that we do have access to the PC-Tel scanners, which basically is a spectrum analyzer that helps you to do a site survey that identifies the areas inside the building that are failing or potentially failing. Because really these systems, it's a little bit different than a traditional DAS, because a lot of times in traditional DAS, you want to get as much signal into the building as possible so that there's no spots where there's low signal. With ERCES, you are basically spot treating the building. You're identifying those areas that are not passing or don't have adequate signal to be able to connect to the radio tower, and you're fixing those spots specifically. So we do partner with PC-Tel that provides equipment to be able to test those buildings.
Gotcha. And so, so you're saying you have UHF BDAs. So, I mean, do you have VHF as well, or is it strictly just
We
UHF?
do not at this time have VHF. Okay. Yeah. We also don't currently offer fiber solutions, but it is something that R&D is currently aggressively pursuing. And so we do plan to have units, both remote units as well as master units, by the end of the year for fiber.
Gotcha. So in terms of it to help the integrators, I mean, do you guys provide like design services or anything, or I know some folks would do like ROMs or rough order magnitude type things. Do you guys provide those types of services for integrators, for the integration world?
We do, and especially in our particular market, a lot of these guys are getting a request from an AHJ or from a general contractor at the witching hour. They just need a rough, dirty number to know what is this going to cost. So we do offer on our website complimentary estimates. You just have to put in, some of the information about the building so that we can kind of try to guesstimate as well as possible at the max what you would need and what that overall cost would be. And then once we've established that the general contractor is interested in pursuing that bid, we can go ahead and get a little bit more granular and offer IB Wave services, which is basically a design software for radio frequency systems that'll let you know exactly what type of equipment you'll need, how much of it you'll need, but it'll also show you this really cool color layout of what are called heat maps or propagation maps that lets you know exactly what signal you're expecting to have inside of the building, and it's all color coded. So we do offer that as a service as well for a nominal fee.
Nice. That's really nice.
Yeah.
So it sounds like, you're talking about AHJs and stuff. Is Potter trying to actively work with the AHJs? Trying to, because there's a big, and we've talked before on the show where, you have the AHJs and they're kind of the holders of the information and the license or the frequency license holder, and it's great to be able to disseminate that to the integration world, to the integrators. So we all are kind of like someone we had spoken to recently was talking about are on the same page of music, so we're all doing the same thing. But are you guys kind of actively trying to work with AHJs to see what they're doing and how you might be able to help? Say with the equipment side, I know certain parts of the country, especially if you're talking UHF, you have to have so many frequency or filters, in order to be supported in that region. So are you guys actively doing those types of things?
Yeah. I will sit down and talk to any authority having jurisdiction or any license holder that will talk to me. I'm a couple of degrees of separation outside of direct contact with AHJs and license holders. Our sales engineers, they're very active. A lot of them are actually former integrators or they're former project managers, those types of things. So they do have to use an old term, they do have a Rolodex of contacts. But, we do have a certain degree of separation on the customer side, because usually it's the customer that's having the direct contact with the licensee or with the AHJ. But we are the guy in the chair that's kind of instructed them, hey, these are the questions to ask, find out what version of code that they have adopted, these are some things to consider, ask them these questions. We've done quite a few lunch and learns with authorities having jurisdiction. There is a company, or there's a coalition, Safer Buildings Coalition, that will go into different regions and do kind of a lunch and learn with any of the authorities having jurisdiction in the area that want to come in and learn a little bit more about, ERCES and those types of things. And we, more often than not, are at least at a table there, or are sitting and talking with these AHJs. But it is really important to have those conversations, because the gamut of requirements is vast from AHJ to AHJ. There are some jurisdictions that have specific equipment requirements, not just code requirements, but they're like, listen, we understand that your product will satisfy the necessity for in-building coverage, but we also need these security features, or we also need these technological features as well. And we can only do that if we know that it's a requirement. Getting that information, keeping the line of communication open with AHJs and license holders is paramount in our company.
Oh, that's great. That's good. And that's always been the challenge. Just like you're saying, keeping those lines of communication open, trying to, and I always love working with, in our industry too. I mean, like you're saying, we have kind of the authorities having jurisdiction, integrators, all sorts of different low volt companies that are involved in this industry, and trying to help everybody to be successful. So to get that information from AHJs, or even to teach them sometimes, because we have, a lot of requests from AHJs for training, which is kind of why we're doing this summit. That's what kind of the originating factor was, can we get some training? But to help everybody to get that education, to be on the same page, to be going in the same direction, because the code is there, but it's how people interpret it, how they enforce it. Like you're saying, specific requirements, technology wise, if they need EPO switches for emergency power off as an example, just different things. And it's different all over the country. And so we get a chance to talk to so many different people, and they'll say, well, it's not like that here, or I wish we could do that here, and that type of thing. So I think it's
they'll adopt code. They'll adopt code from a jurisdiction that needs really strict requirements, right? Because like you think of Miami-Dade County, which is a big horn blower in this industry, because they're about as stringent as you can get. Denver is another one that's very stringent on their requirements. In the Seattle area is very stringent, because they have to be, because you had said very briefly, we want to help them be successful. We can't have them not be successful. This
True.
is not we did good enough. This is a pass or fail, period. And some of these smaller jurisdictions that maybe don't need as strict of rules, because they don't have a population of 2 million in their area. They've got a city that's 40,000 people, and maybe there's 2 radio towers. They don't need the same type of stringent requirements as somebody like a Miami-Dade County.
Exactly. Well, let me ask you, Adam. So we have a summit coming up in a couple of weeks. You guys will be hosting a table, which will be great. It'll be great to get to see the team. What are you guys going to be showcasing? And what's the emphasis for the show for you guys?
Well, the showcase is going to be myself. I will be there, and I'll be able to shake the hands of anyone who wants to come up and shake my hand. I am going to be bringing the Class B system, the Guardian B, and then we may have the UHF as well, but I'll be able to plug that in. We'll be able to show some of the alarming features, and then we'll have, some of our swag as well that you're expecting from any summit.
Gotcha. Well, Adam, this has been great. Any kind of last thoughts as we start wrapping up?
I think that the industry continues to grow as it gains notoriety. The more AHJs know that this code, like NFPA 1225 and 1221, are out there that deal specifically with ERCES, the more of those AHJs that adopt that, the safer these first responders are going to be, the safer and more efficient these systems are going to be installed. Because if you don't know what's required, my wife always says, you're only responsible for what you know. So once you become aware of what those requirements are, now you're responsible for those requirements. Really? So I'm really excited about, the way that the industry has grown. The more clarity there has been, it's pretty exciting. And I'm pretty excited for what Potter ERCES is going to be doing in the near future, because we do kind of thread the needle of practicality, but also up-to-date technology. And so I think that that's really important for the industry, because, if you only have a certain number of people that are able to install these systems, you have reduced your and now have increased overall costs. So creating competition is good. It's okay to have multiple people that are bidding on the projects, because it just forces you to be better than the other guy. And I think that that's a really important piece of this market moving forward.
Yeah, I agree. Well, Adam, thank you so much. It's just been a pleasure to get this little teaser about Potter, and I appreciate the input and your insights as well. It's been great. And so everybody, if you can attend the summit in 2 weeks, you'll get a chance to shake Adam's hand. He'll be there. So we'll get him some headshots. You can do some signatures. I don't know. Well, thank you again, Adam. Yep, absolutely. Thanks again, and appreciate everything you guys are doing. And we'll be talking to you soon. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Fast Talk by Gamma, keeping you connected and protected.